Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Hunt, and just wanted to go through my Excel project with you guys for accounting, research, and communication. Basically, the premise of this project was kind of a common thing that happens that at least I deal with working in accounting, and I'm sure a lot of you others that work in accounting as well deal with is we're going through our monthly closing process, and we often receive just general ledger detail from bookkeepers or AP clerks or whoever it may be. So the premise of this was to translate a long list, kind of as you can see here, I've imported some data. Basically transition this or make this long list of data useful to somebody. So what I have here is, as you can see, it goes all the way down, all the way down. I think there's probably about, let's see what the total is here. So I'm trying to translate 1,300, 1,400 lines of Excel into useful data. It's very simple. So what I came up with is I wanted something that I could just hit the print button with. So what that is, if you kind of follow me down here, is this printable performance summary. So my background is in real estate, so I kind of just picked this apartment complex in Dallas that I used to live at, and made some fake numbers up basically from this data right here. And what I have is I just want to be able to take this GL detail right here and turn it into this. Now, this is just a summary, basically a performance summary of what's going on in the month of January. So how do we get from here to here? And Excel, is a very useful tool for doing something like that. So I'm going to kind of go through the process of how I did that and the different formulas and tools that I use to make this happen. So as you can see, if I want to go ahead and print it, that's what it would end up looking like on a sheet of paper if I want to just hand it to somebody and give them a summary of what's going on. So to get from, this 1,400 lines of Excel detail, as you can see, I can keep scrolling and keep scrolling to this, is actually just kind of going through the actual financial process itself. And so what I did is I started with a trial balance. And as you can see, I kind of just added some color here. So if you did want to print it out, you could print it out and make this one look nice as well. But let me go through and show you how I translated this data from the general ledger that, in theory was given to me from a bookkeeper into the trial balance. So the way that I did that was through kind of a complicated lookup. And I'm not sure if, we have not gone through index and match yet, but this is what I've used, is the index and match function. And you can see here that where I'm pulling this data from is the GL detail. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the beginning balance of this account, right? So the reason that a VLOOKUP, or I guess I should say a VLOOKUP would work for the forward balance, if you come over here and you look at this general ledger account, for example, I could do a VLOOKUP straight from this to this, right? That would work, but what I can't do is get this piece, right? So let me show you the ending balance, how I got the ending balance using index and match. And what I did was, let me scroll down to the bottom here. As you can see on this general ledger detail that in theory I was given, but this is just some random data that I was able to pull. You can see this totals for this GL account, which in this case is 10710. And it'll give me the total right there. And how I did that using index match, the reason that you can't just do a VLOOKUP with that is because it's got the wording totals for before the GL account. And what index match can do that VLOOKUP can't is use this right here. You can see the you can put in your own verbiage, your own data, whatever you want to look up, you can actually look that up. So I was able to get myself a beginning and an ending balance by using index and match. In this case, like I said, I could have used VLOOKUP, but I went ahead and just used index match. And that gave me my starting balance and my beginning balance. So you can see I've already translated down this many rows of detail in this one account. From this beginning, this ending, I was able to translate that. There we go. I was able to translate that into what activity happened during the month as a summary. So once I know I have my beginning and ending balances on the trial balance, I just need to decide if it is a credit or a debit. Did it increase or did it decrease based on account? And the way that I did that is I came up with an if formula, which we've gone over if formulas in the class already. But basically it's a simple if formula, and that is if this, you can see, is excuse me, if this number is less than or greater than, it'll show up as a credit or debit. So it's just kind of a simple if then statement. Greater or less than 0, it'll show up as either a debit or credit. And you can see if you were to look at make a journal entry, in this case, if you credited cash for this amount, this would be your ending balance. So it's actually kind of simple. Once you figure out for one account, you can see through this GL detail that every GL detail, in theory, given to me from a bookkeeper or likes of that, excuse me, was translated based on this beginning just GL code and this ending totals for GL code, insert whatever GL code. So I was able to create a trial balance for the whole thing. And you can see as I scroll down here, it's kind of a long trial balance, that I have proof totals. I know that it works because I picked up all of the detail using this index match function, and I have obviously a balance, 2 equal amounts, credits and debits, and a balance here. And the way that I made the trial balance is, this is a chart of accounts that I made, and it's just, kind of your standard. Now this is for an apartment, this is for real estate, this is what I'm used to, but this is kind of just a standard chart of accounts you would see on this. So that's where I got that detail from. So then it's kind of, from there, if you have, if you're familiar with Excel formulas, that's kind of the hardest one, is getting the index match to work. And it's kind of nice because in theory, you could replace all of the index matching with whatever you wanted. Let's say you have a different chart of accounts or a different GL code, you can make this see where it says totals for, if it said something different here, you could create any sort of, you could put, I should say, you can put any verbiage that you'd want in there. So from there, once you have the trial balance, it's kind of just translating that into your financial statements. So what I did here was, let's switch to the balance sheet here, is I made a balance sheet, basically just pulling all of the information from the trial balance onto the balance sheet. And the way that I got this GL detail, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this formula, but concatenate is a very useful formula. You can see here, what I did is I combined 2 pieces of data into 1 piece of data. And I basically did that for the entire trial balance that equates to the balance sheet. So you can see here, I've got all of my balance sheet accounts labeled out in separate categories according to type here. And I know that this works because I have a proof test here. So here's my total liabilities and equity. And here, I should say, and then here's my total assets. And you see that they tie. So you know that all of the formulas worked correctly, pulling it from the trial balance. And again, just kind of a useful tool in Excel as well is making everything printable. So if I try to print this, you can see, yes, it will look halfway decent for my apartment that I'm pretend doing the financials for here. So then from there, you need to pull in the data from the trial, or sorry, excuse me, the income statement is what I did next. You can see here, excuse me. What I did was I created a multi-step income statement, just basically right off of the trial balance. And this one was a little bit more complicated. Again, I did a lookup, but in combination with an if function. So it's kind of hard. You need to, if you're going to use this on your own, if you're going to pull directly, what I did was I used a VLOOKUP that basically says if for any accounts that have a normal credit balance, which in this case obviously is just the revenue accounts on the income statement, then what I did was make sure that it pulls from the trial balance the lookup from the, well, when we go to revenue account. For example, that first one, right? It's going to pull, it knows to pull this because there's no activity in here. So the way that I did that is with this VLOOKUP right here. You can see that if the debits are 0, then it will, you can kind of see, sorry, if the debits are 0 right there, then it will give me the credit amounts. Oop. Let me fix that. Oh, hold on, sorry. Let me fix that really quick. Sorry about that. Okay. So again, it's basically just saying if there's nothing in the debits, give me the credits. And if there's nothing in the credits, then give me the debits. And you can see here that it fills all the way down. And it's just a simple multi-step. It's just categorizing your income statement. And I'll go ahead and go down here a little bit more, and you can see that we get all the way down to, here's our net income. And in this case, we categorize below the line expenses. So you'll see here some capital, and then some reclass of capital to the balance sheet, and then interest and some corporate expenses unrelated to the property. So now that we've basically used all of this GL detail, I mean, 1,400 lines, we've, just using lookups, some complicated lookups, but lookups nonetheless to get to our financials. And it's kind of nice, again, you can print these out, which is nice. And they're ready to hand to somebody, which is kind of a great thing about Excel, is you can make everything look nice and pretty very easily. So now that I have my financials, I wanted to just be able to give a printable summary. So here's my printable summary right here. This is kind of the end game of all of these tabs, was to get from the GL detail to this. So, if you're working in accounting and somebody says, okay, here's your, your general ledger activity, or the bookkeeper says, here's your general ledger activity. And then, your job is to translate that into usable information. So I wanted to put on here as much usable information, but summarized. So you can see here, instead of this long multi-step income statement, I translated everything down to a summarized financials. So you can see here's our net income, our interest expense, our capital, et cetera, going all the way down to our cash. So this is kind of useful. It's basically saying, in the month of January, in this hypothetical situation, there was a cash surplus of $70,000. And we know that that's correct because you can see here, let me go to the trial balance. Here is our same $70,000. So we know that everything is flowing correctly, which is really great. And then just kind of in addition to that, besides just the financial information, you can see here's the annualized version. So it's kind of a common question when you're doing financial reporting, like what are we going to look like at the end of the year? So it's just kind of a simple annualized calculation. Obviously, since we're in January in this situation, that it's just going to be this month times 12. Excuse me. And then you can see at the top here, you can pull directly from the financial statement. So here's our current equity amount, the debt that we hold, and here's the total investment that we have in this hypothetical property. And then again, kind of your cash status. And those are, if you work in accounting, you know, those are kind of the main three things people are asking. How much are we in it for? How much cash do we have? And what's our reporting look like? What's our revenue look like? So I should say revenue and NOI. But then here you can kind of see, here is our, just a few additional performance ratios that are useful. And the nice thing about this is, since this automatically feeds from your trial balance, which automatically feeds from your GL detail, you get this same GL detail, but just in a future month. All you have to do is just copy and paste in here. And this will automatically fill in every single one of these tabs. So it's kind of just a really simple way to present the financials. And with that, you know, with updating all those tabs, it also will update these ratios. And these are just a few ratios that I know are pretty common in the industry. And obviously, you know, there's room to add as many as you want. As you can see, you know, just here's just like a yield on NOI. You can see it's just a simple calculation of, here's our equity, here's our NOI after debt, and a few other things. Just you know, return on NOI. This is a very common calculation, and you know, this is just a made up figure, but you know, it's commonly called cap rate. So cap rate, we just said it was a 3.5, just to kind of a comparison figure you can put in there. And here we have asset test ratios. Again, just pulling directly from the financials that were made by using all those formulas. And then again, here's our debt ratio. I guess in this case, the debt ratio is pretty high, but that's not uncommon in this industry. And then here's something common in lender reporting, debt service ratio. And this is actually kind of simple calculation. It's just, here is what our expected NOI is, and here is our interest expense. So pretty common use of that ratio. So that is my Excel project. And again, it was to simplify a really complicated process. Obviously, I wanted to be able to translate all of this data. It's kind of a massive amount of data. You know, I have over 1,400 lines of data. Yeah, 1,400 lines of data. And I wanted to basically be able to copy and paste something and turn it into this. I think it turned out really nice. And again, it's just very printable. So if you wanted to print it, you could print it to hand somebody, you know, just to hand somebody something. I think that's what makes this project so great. Thank you.